Good evening and welcome to News Watch tonight on Hope TV as we bring you the latest news making headlines in the country. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Omondi and our sign language interpreter is Boniface Murithi. Now let's begin. In the wake of school unrests in the country, the government through the Ministry of Education has now reviewed a circular on the school calendar that indicated there will be no midterm for secondary school students during the current term that began last month. In a notice to all regional and county directors of education, the Ministry of Education has directed that students proceed on half-term break from Friday, 19th November 2021 to Tuesday, 23rd November 2021. In recent days, there have been increased cases of unrest in schools, the most notable being in Buruburu Girls Secondary School in Nairobi, where scores were hospitalized after their dormitory caught fire. Failure to slot in the half-term break during this term has been cited as the main reason cases of unrest are being reported across the country. Other schools that have torched dormitories or destroyed property include Ofafa Jericho High School, Kibirigi Girls High School, Chavakali Boys Secondary School, Thome Boys High School, among others. Meanwhile, security officers in Dia, Kirinyaga County have intensified investigations into a fire incident at Kifuru Boys High School. The fire gutted down 32 beds in a dormitory. The incident comes a week after tensions and fire threats engulfed neighboring Kibirigi Girls High School. Deputy Commissioner Moses Ivuto has warned culpable students that the law will catch up with them.
Tulipokea ripoti kwamba kuna moto ulikuwa umezuka katika hii shule ya Kiburu Boys High School, and tuliweza kufika kwa wakati ufao na tukapata kwamba kuna dormitory ilikuwa imeanza kushika moto. Lakini nataka nitoe shukrani za dhati kwa community ya Kiburu ambayo iliweza kuingilia mara moja ikisaidiana pamoja na fire brigade from Kerugoya, na huo moto ukaweza kuzimwa kabla ya kuweza kusambaa katika ile dormitory. Ni just a few cubicles ambazo zimeweza kushika moto kama vile mmeona, just one cubicle actually, not cubicles, na moto ukaweza kuzimwa. Na kwa sababu hiyo kila kitu kiko safe, watoto na property katika hii shule, na ni kufanya tu ule uchunguzi wa kawaida kuweza kujua chanzo cha moto ambao utaweza kuanzishwa hapo asubuhi. Lakini kila kitu chote, masomo itaendelea kama kawaida. Manake huyo moto ulikuwa very minimal.
Hii domu ni andabo. Kuna upper and the lower. Hii hapa ndio imechomeka vitanda 32. Lakini ile ya lower hakuna kitanda hata moja kimegushwa. Na bahati nyingine hakuna mtoto ambaye amejeruhiwa. Na hii dormitory about miaka 3 iliyopita ilikuwa already wamechoma, na sasa wamechoma tena, na wale wanakaa kwa this dormitory ni form 3, form 2, form 3 and form 4. Kwa hivyo mmoja wao ndio ametenda hiki kitendo, lakini kesho ndio tutajua ukweli wa mambo ni gani, kwa sababu tutaendelea na kuweka investigation tujue chanzo cha moto ni gani, kwa sababu as a fire officer we must know chanzo cha moto ilikuwa gani.
Striking Embu healthcare workers on Tuesday called off their strike after the county government agreed to meet their demands. The healthcare workers have been on strike for the past 23 days, paralyzing the county's public health system over failure by the employer to remit statutory deductions to relevant authorities, inadequate medical supplies, as well as failure to regularize pay packs for workers on contract. Grace Ongoi has the details.
Embu residents who have had to be turned down while seeking medical help in public hospitals for the last 23 days can now breathe a sigh of relief after the health workers promised to call off their strike. The decision comes after the county government agreed to their demands. Their almost 1 month strike had paralyzed the county's public health system. The health workers had downed their tools over failure by the employer to remit statutory deductions to relevant authorities, inadequate medical supplies, as well as lack of regularization of pay packs for workers on contract. Speaking during a joint forum that brought together medical stakeholders and officials of the Embu County government, the Kenya National Union of Nurses National Chairman Joseph Ngwasi called on all health workers to resume work in 48 hours following the signing of the return to work formula. Ngwasi went on to further say that the employer had agreed to address their most immediate demands relating to remittance of statutory deductions, while the rest will be handled within the agreed timelines as per the signed agreement.
Tumekuwa na mikutano mirefu baina ya executive ya county na sisi viongozi wa vyama vya wahudumu wa afya. Ni kwamba tumeweza kukubaliana kwa mambo mengine, kuna mambo mengine ambayo tungepata suluhu mara moja, lakini tumekubaliana ya kwamba huu mjadala uendelee mpaka haya mambo yaweze kutatuliwa, kwa sababu wakati tunaongea kama viongozi wa vyama na kama mwanjiri wetu ama executive, hatutaweza kufikia hicho kiwango ambapo wahudumu wa afya wameweza kushiriki katika mgomo.
On his part, County Health Workers Union Chair Aloysius Njoka challenged the County Assembly to relook at the health budget with a view of appropriating adequate funds to ensure smooth operations in all public health facilities.
The matters that were on the table are remittance. There was a deadlock on remittance, which we have covered up to the month of August. Department of Finance can confirm that we have a deadline to have cleared the remaining 2 months, and I want to call upon every person in office in the Department of Finance to do his work so that we don't get this deadlock again past the 31st of December, please. Another deadlock was on employees under contract. Also, we have come to a conclusion on a certain deadline. Public Service Board needs to rise, ban the midnight oil until by the deadline of what we have come to an agreement on matters of contract employees should be cleared.
Meanwhile, County Executive Committee CEC member in charge of health, who also doubles up as the Deputy Governor, David Kariuki, informed the health workers that the county had already updated the accounts in arrears dating back to November last year up to August this year.
And I want at this particular time to promise, particularly the Department of Health, that it is going to be business unusual as far as engaging with you is concerned. You are going to see a new environment rather in terms of support, so that we serve the people of Embu, this great county, well. We want to give and promise prompt, efficient and effective services, but that can only happen if we work very closely with you, if we give you all the support that you are calling for. We have that ability, we are up to the bidding, and you can rest assured that basically is going to come your way.
Grace Ongoi for Hope TV News Watch.
Away from that, the Commission on Revenue Allocation has on Tuesday made recommendations concerning the basis for equitable sharing of nationally raised revenue between the national and county governments. CRA Chairperson Dr. Jane Kiringai said the county governments will receive 370 billion shillings in the next financial year, casting a shadow over governors netting an additional 381 billion shillings. As Kennedy Kimani now reports, the Council of Governors had on October rejected the proposals by CRA, which recommended an increment to the county equitable share, arguing that CRA's proposal does not reflect and is not commensurate to the growth in revenue for the financial year 2022-2023.
County governments will now be forced to operate within the budget they were allocated in the financial year 2020-2021 of 370 billion after the Commission of Revenue Allocation Chairperson Dr. Jane Kiringai said that for the counties to receive more allocation, the country will have to increase tax to its citizens or borrow more so as to accommodate the county government's request. According to the recommendations of CRA, the national government will be allocated 1.76 trillion. The county governments will receive 370 billion, while 6.8 billion will be allocated to the Equalization Fund.
I want to emphasize that we're keeping it the same, 370 billion. You recall that last year it was an increase from 316 billion to 370 billion. That was in excess of 50 billion increase. It is the view of the Commission that that increase is, in our view, sufficient for the counties to operate in, particularly in an election year where we see that budget implementation slows down, is a transition year. So we believe that within 370 billion, if counties even restructure their expenditure, it is sufficient to create the kind of stimulus that would be needed to make to generate economic growth light from the local level.
Dr. Jane Kiringai said that the key considerations guiding the vertical shareable revenue for the financial year 2022-2023 is among them slow economic growth, a constrained fiscal framework, the need to contain public debt, and the need to finance and provide security for the 2022 elections. The shareable revenue for the financial year 2022-2023 is projected to increase by 366.4 billion from an estimate of 1.77 trillion in the financial year 2021-2022 to 2.1 trillion.
One of the things we have tried to do as a commission is have a parameter in the revenue that was very controversial, that ensures that a capacity to raise their own revenue is inbuilt in the formula. But that didn't see the light of within Parliament. But that is the way we do it, and that is within the mandate that the Constitution gives us to infuse it through the formula. I want to believe that those that come after us may try to do it in the fourth formula, and we wish them well. But this is the way to do it in light of the constitutional levers or the legal levers that we have as a commission.
In the month of October, the Council of Governors had rejected the proposals by CRA in totality, saying that CRA had not provided sufficient reasons to deny the counties an increment to the revenue share. Counties secured the 370 billion shillings increment in the current financial year, up from 316.5 billion shillings after a heated debate in the Senate over the third generation sharing formula, which took President Uhuru Kenyatta's intervention to unlock the stalemate. Over 3 trillion have been allocated to the county governments since the onset of devolution.
With the financial year 2022-2023 being a transitional period in the country, the Commission on Revenue Allocation has raised a concern over the huge pending bills in the county governments, urging the counties to pay the bills before the transition happens, since the incoming government may not prioritize the pending bills. Kennedy Kimani, Hope TV Newswatch, in Nairobi.
Kenya on Tuesday joined the rest of the world in commemorating the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, with calls to defend the media and safety of journalists taking center stage. With the celebration coming just less than a year to the general election, stakeholders who include the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, UNESCO, Kenya Union of Journalists, and the Media Council of Kenya called for action, as latest data indicate that journalists' rights violations have continued to rise. Dickens Luvanda has this report.
In their pursuit.
The Media Council of Kenya, in partnership with UNESCO, commemorated the International Day to End Impunity Against Journalists on Tuesday, with calls to protect journalists across the country.
There have been 2 cases, one in Busia, county government staff against some journalists. That was successfully done. Then there was a case in Siaya of police versus KNS staff. Those are the 4 cases that have successfully been prosecuted in this country. The number of cases and attacks against journalists has been huge. And many times we have written to the Office of the Inspector General of Police, who have been very helpful, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution,
The International Day to End Impunity Against Journalists is an annual event celebrated on November 2nd to raise awareness and promote a dialogue between all actors in combating impunity for crimes against journalists. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, during the event urged the members of Fourth Estate to remain professional while ensuring freedom of expression respects the dignity and privacy of others, does not propagate ethnic incitement or discrimination, and reflects the interests of all.
Today's event comes at a defining moment in this country. With less than a year to the general elections, journalists are uniquely positioned to help focus our national dialogue on the issues that matter and which will determine Kenya's future. More broadly, the issue of protecting journalists is also about the issue of safeguarding our democracy as a nation or nations. Namely, how does a society grant its citizens the right to think, believe, right to speak, as their conscience dictates, or more plainly, freedom of expression?
According to the DPP, free speech must not be a license to perpetrate the assaults of political opponents or to engage in acts of vandalism.
We are grateful for the contribution that journalists have made in drawing attention to and directing our national dialogue towards problems that we must address. At times, your work has helped to launch investigations, to advance prosecutions, and to enhance the effort of law enforcement. The Media Council of Kenya must guarantee that they too will play their part in ensuring that their freedom of expression is exercised in a manner that respects the dignity and privacy of others, does not propagate ethnic incitement or discrimination, and reflects the interests of all sectors of society. Above all, keep working to ensure you uphold integrity in your profession, even when the truth may be at odds with the powers that be.
A speech by the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai that was delivered by his Principal Assistant Muga Nyali reaffirmed the National Police Service commitment to promoting safety and protection of journalists as he called for collective efforts amongst and with the stakeholders.
It is against this backdrop that the need to cement deliberate collaboration of the National Police Service and the media community in Kenya is underscored. The institutions share a symbolic relationship and are mutually dependent on each other.
I think we must call out these employers to end economic crimes against journalists, as we also call out people who attack journalists out there. It is unacceptable that when other companies are doing this, we put them on the headlines. But this is happening right in our newsrooms, and we are keeping quiet about it, and we are calling out others. We must call out impunity and crimes against journalists in our newsrooms.
According to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, impunity against journalists has been rampant across the world, with most of the cases going unpunished.
Last year, according to UNESCO, 62 journalists were killed just for doing their jobs. Many lost their lives to conflict. But in recent years, the number of media workers killed while investigating corruption, trafficking, and other human rights violations has risen. Almost 9 out of 10 of these killings go unpunished. And journalists face countless other threats, from kidnapping and torture to detention and harassment. The COVID-19 pandemic and the shadow pandemic of misinformation have demonstrated that access to information can be a matter of life and death. Threatening that access by targeting journalists sends a disturbing message that undermines democracy and the rule of law. Today, on the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, we call for justice for journalists killed in the line of duty and commemorate their legacy and achievements.
Deacon Sulvanda, Hope TV News.
Let's get to some politics now. Deputy President William Ruto has urged Kenyans to rally behind leaders whose development track records are clear. According to Ruto, Kenyans should elect leaders in 2022 who have the willingness and capacity to implement projects and programs that will transform their lives. He spoke in Nyamira County, and Alice Diana has this report.
Harambe! Harambe!
Deputy President William Ruto's tour in Nyamira County entered day 2 on Tuesday, where he continued to criticize his opponents for not having a development track record during their tenure in government.
Sasa kwa hii watu wote ambao wanatafuta kiti ya rais, si mnajua iko ule alikuwa prime minister, iko ule alikuwa vice president, iko mwingine alikuwa deputy prime minister, si mnajua? Sio wageni, ni watu tunawajua. Ama namna gani? Na amewahi kupata nafasi ya uongozi Kenya, si ndio? Sasa niwaulize hawa watu wengine, mimi nashindana na wao, wapi kazi yao ya hapa Nyamira?
Speaking during various empowerment programs at Bomwagano, Nyamusi, Magwagwa, Ikonge, Ekeronyo, Kebiringo, and Nyamira Town in North Migirango and West Migirango constituencies, Ruto challenged his competitors in the State House race to have parties with national outlook besides showing their past development track records.
I want to challenge my competitors. My friends, please, fanyeni hima, mutafute candidate haraka haraka. Mutafute sera kwa na mpango yenu. Haitoshi nyinyi criticize bottom up. Tafuteni yenu muuzie wa Kenya. Na mupange chama, wacheni chama ya kabila hii na chama ya kabila ile. Unganisheni hiyo chama yenu kidogo kidogo iwe chama moja.
The deputy president at the same time drummed up support for his United Democratic Alliance UDA party, saying it has come up with a revolutionary bottom-up economic model that seeks to empower ordinary citizens. He wondered why his opponents were only relying on sloganeering aimed at exciting the public instead of selling their agenda.
Ndio mulisikia juzi kule Mashujaa, nilimwambia rais ile mpango yetu ya Big Four sasa nitaunganisha na hii bottom-up. Ndio ile kazi ilikwama, tuweke hapa ndani tupeleke iende mbele. Wale tunashindana na wao wanasema wanataka ati tubadilishe katiba kwanza.
The second in command was accompanied by MPs Joash Nyamoko of North Migirango, Silvana Sosoro of South Migirango, Vincent Kemosi of West Migirango, Shadrach Mose of Kitutu Masaba, and Vincent Musioka of Mwala, who urged the people of Nyamira to support development-conscious leaders who are committed to transforming their lives, and asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to utilize anti-graft agencies to fight corruption in the country.
President wetu Uhuru Kenyatta tunamheshimu sana. Ile tu tunamuomba, wakati Mheshimiwa Kibaki alikuwa anamaliza miaka yake 10, alitengeneza peace na akaketi chini, akaongoja nyinyi, akaruhusu kila mtu akakuja kukampeni, ndio nyinyi mkachaguliwa. Sijui kwa nini president saa hii anataka kuingilia siasa ya 2022. Tunaambia yeye akuwe mpole. Juzi nimesikia akisema viongozi mchunge wasikuwe wezi wenye mnachagua. Wakati President Uhuru Kenyatta alichaguliwa Kenya hii, alikuwa na kesi ya ICC. Na si ya wizi, alikuwa na kesi ya mada. Lakini wa Kenya waliignore maneno ya mada kwa sababu ilikuwa suspect, wakamchagua. Sasa wakati anasema kuna wezi ambao wanavai, yeye yako na askari, yeye yako na judiciary, yeye yako na NIS. Mbona ashiki wao wapeleke kotini, washikwe, wachajiwe, waache kusimama? Mbona anakuja kwa rally kuprosecute watu kwa rally, badala aende ashike huyo mwizi, ampeleke kotini, mwizi aende kamiti?
For Hope TV News Watch, I'm Alice Diana.
Well, that report by Alice Diana takes us to a short commercial break on News Watch. To be back with more, do stay with Hope TV.
This week on Turning Point by Dr. David Jeremiah.
Jesus touched lepers who were untouchable according to the law. He expressed compassion for a woman taken in adultery. He accepted the worship of a woman who was criticized because she poured perfume all over his feet. He touched the eyes of the blind and the ears of the deaf. He cast demons out of people who were violent. And during his final hours, he comforted a murderer who was nailed to a cross next to him. And after his resurrection, he reassured a doubting disciple and reestablished the disciple who had denied him. Jesus had no place in his heart for the cancel culture. He was wonderful at demonstrating God's love and grace to everyone. And ladies and gentlemen, he still is.
That's this week on Turning Point by Dr. David Jeremiah.
Furahia na OptiBet!
Dad!
mpya. Umetoa wapi gari mpya?
Optiven wametusort.
Optiven?
Nunua any of our value-added properties ama redeem installment ya property yako. Kwa kila malipo ya 10,000 unapata 1 entry point kwenye draw ya furahia na Optiven promotion. Airtime kushindaniwa kila siku, holiday kila wiki, shinda ploti na gari kila mwezi na grand prize ya Mercedes-Benz C180. Ni rahisi, buy ama redeem na ushinde na furahia na Optiven.
Welcome back to News Watch. President Uhuru Kenyatta on Tuesday morning met with the leadership team of the Kenya-UK Health Alliance, KUKA, on the sidelines of the ongoing 26th UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, in Glasgow, Scotland. KUKA team briefed the head of state on the progress of the implementation of the broad strategic partnership, including the rollout of the Jomo Kenyatta Scholarship Program and the building of a state-of-the-art training center at Kisii University. The Jomo Kenyatta Scholarship is a specialized medical training and capacity enhancement program that will see Kenyan healthcare providers trained in the UK in a wide array of specialized medical areas. The training center at the Kisii University will be a regional hub for healthcare research, innovation and training of advanced level medical personnel for Kenya and Eastern Africa countries. Now, women in politics and leadership in the country have vowed to stop at nothing to make women leadership relevant and make political journeys of younger women handy in the country's development. The Ministry of Public Service and Gender has assured that it's putting together measures to advance the participation of women in Kenyan politics, especially in the run-up to the general election. The meeting held in Nairobi converged key gender stakeholders from various sectors under the auspices of the Common Women Agenda COA. Doli Muregi has this story.
The women in politics hope to deliberate the roadmap on achieving the two-third gender role in the 2022 general election and help younger women joining politics create an array of networks. Research done in 2019 on women in politics highlighted media engagement as one of the obstacles to women's representation and inclusion in leadership, particularly in parliament. There is need for women leaders to support and mentor young women in different spheres of life in political and professional journeys.
How do we move forward so that even as we are preparing for 2022, we have the women that are running, the women that are defending their seats, the women who are aspiring for higher seats and who are aspirants for the first time are equipped with the right skills or media engagement, right skills in terms of fundraising, partners that are supporting know which areas this money that the women need to run for office is going.
Women politicians who gathered in Nairobi on Tuesday challenged women political aspirants to have well-thought-out political ambitions and plans and not try to be like their male counterpart. According to Nerima Wako, a political analyst, there are women who are searching for a breath of fresh air in leadership, and the media has a role to play in this.
There is a lot of fear, especially for women to go on screen. And the fear is that we don't know enough. And sometimes we overcompensate, we overstudy, we over-research. We feel like we have to know it all. Yet a man can show up on screen with hubris, absolutely knowing nothing, but confidence and bravado, and makes no sense. But he has shown up. And for me, it's to just encourage also young women and women alike to go on screen.
The aspirants have been challenged to vie for issue-based politics and called upon to be realistic as much as they will be supported. The women are aware that the time for theories was over and it was now time to take action.
It's not just enough for the women to show up. We also need to speak to the citizens, because we can have all these nice candidates running for office, but do the citizens know what they bring to the table? Do the citizens know what the women in leadership, the change that they're making? And I believe that our organizations, and those similar to ours, can really help by amplifying the work that the women are doing so that we change citizen minds and we show them that women can and women are able.
Acknowledging that the biggest challenge to date for women politicians is funding, with it being noted that women candidates also need visibility and team support.
We may not have enough money, but what we have to do is sell our vision. Let's invest in, polishing our vision and just selling a vision that can, just sell a good vision to the people. And I believe when you do that, money has a way of coming in.
We thank you very much.
Dolly Mirigi, Hope TV, Newswatch.
The government is set to spend approximately 137 million shillings to build 174 new classrooms in various secondary schools in Narok County. Narok County Commissioner Evans Achoki said the project is in readiness for the transition from primary school to junior secondary in the new competency-based curriculum CBC. Achoki, who addressed the media after holding a county CBC infrastructure committee meeting, said a total of 127 schools will benefit from the project, set to be completed by April 2022. Secondary schools with a huge population will get 3 classrooms, while those with fewer students will benefit from 1 classroom each.
For our preparation for the transition into junior secondary schools in 2023, the government has decided to build new classrooms that will accommodate the students who will be transitioning to the junior secondary schools. We have agreed that we are going to kick off this program from today. We, in Narok County, we are going to build 174 new classrooms in 127 schools.
Ours is to call upon the head teachers and the boards of management to prepare themselves to show us the proper site for the construction of the classrooms, to call upon the community to be up there to assist themselves as they assist the children, because it is an economic stimulus. This money is expected to go and assist the community, and the classrooms are expected to assist our children, because in 2023 we shall have a double intake. We shall have the class 8 going to secondary school, and we shall have the grade 7 also going to secondary school. That is why it was important for us to have the number of classes increased to cope with the number of students that will be joining secondary schools.
At the same time, the government will construct 541 classrooms in Nakuru County at a cost of 426.3 million shillings ahead of the transition of learners from primary to junior secondary schools. County Director of Education Frederick Osewa said the ministry is working jointly with the Ministry of Interior and the National Treasury to establish a framework for the construction of the classrooms in 322 selected secondary schools to provide additional learning space required for the over 54,000 new students set to join junior secondary schools within the devolved unit.
As we are all aware, the Pioneer CBC class are in grade 5, and next year they will do their grade 6. And then in 2023, they are supposed to get into what is known in CBC as junior secondary school. The question many have been asking is, where shall junior secondary school be hosted? For the avoidance of doubt, junior secondary school shall be domiciled in our existing secondary schools. So, arising out of the pronouncement made by the President during Mashujaa Day celebrations, there is a huge allocation of money to be given to schools, secondary schools, to construct extra classrooms in readiness for the junior secondary school, the class that is currently in grade 5. Now, as Nakuru, in this plan, 322 secondary schools have been identified to benefit from CBC classrooms.
In case we cannot be able to give this kind of money, there is another school approximately 1 kilometer from here which has adequate land. be thorough, so that if we are giving alternatives, we should also remember that the initial proposal was supposed to cater for a certain area. Giving us options, Wanamutiwa, kama umekosa contractors, poke your nose in your neighborhood and say Naivasha doesn't have. But in Gilgil, I've realized there are some contractors who can undertake the project. In Subukia, I've realized we can get a contractor. In Nakuru East, I've realized we can get this number of contractors.
Thousands of Kirinyaga residents are rejoicing after completion of various projects that now address perennial water shortages in various parts of the county. A total of 29 water projects were completed in the last financial year, while others are currently ongoing. The projects involved installation of water pipes and fittings, drilling and equipping of boreholes, construction of water intakes, and procurement of water tanks for distribution among residents.
Tumesaidika kwa sababu tulipatiwa pesa na tukanunua mifereji na watu wa Ministry of Water. Hii maji inatumika kwa domestic work na kitchen garden. Lakini tunatarajia ikiongezeka tunaweza fanya mambo ingine.
Kirinyaga being a rural area, our main objective is ensuring at least 80% of our households receive piped water in their homes by 2022. For the time we have been in office, we have commissioned 27 life-changing water projects such as Mwea Makima, which supplies over 30,000 households in Mwea. The project has greatly contributed to reduction of waterborne diseases that residents suffered as a result of using water from the rice canals. Other water projects include Riagishero, Kutus Mjini, Kiandegwa, and Ngariama Njokene, as well as Kamolo and Kiboro borehole projects. We also distributed water tanks to over 1,000 households to enable them harvest and store water for their use. We aim to have 80% of our homesteads connected with piped water by 2022.
Let's look at some international news. Dozens of countries on Tuesday joined a United States and European Union pledge to cut emissions of methane, the most potent greenhouse gas, by 30% this decade, in the most significant climate commitment so far at COP26 in Glasgow. The initiative, which experts say could have a powerful short-term impact followed an announcement earlier Tuesday in which more than 100 nations agreed to end deforestation by 2030. US President Joe Biden called the pledge, which has so far been signed by more than 80 nations, a game-changing commitment that covered countries responsible for around half of global methane emissions.
The science is clear. We only have a brief window left before us to raise our ambitions and to meet the task that's rapidly narrowing. This is a decisive decade in which we have an opportunity to prove ourselves. We can keep the goal of limiting global warming to just 1.5 degrees Celsius within our reach if we come together. If we commit to doing our part of each of our nations with determination and with ambition. That's what COP26 is all about. Glasgow must be the kickoff of a decade of ambition and innovation to preserve our shared future. Climate change is already ravaging the world. We've heard from many speakers. It's not hypothetical. It's not a hypothetical threat. It's destroying people's lives and livelihoods, and doing it every single day. It's costing our nations trillions of dollars. Record heat and drought, fueling more widespread and more intense wildfires in some places and crop failures in others. Record flooding and what used to be a once-in-a-century storms are now happening every few years. In the past few months, the United States has experienced all of this, and every region of the world can tell similar stories. And in an age where this pandemic has made so painfully clear that no nation can wall itself off from borderless threats, we know that none of us can escape the worst that's yet to come if we fail to seize this moment. But ladies and gentlemen, within the growing catastrophe, I believe there's an incredible opportunity, not just for the United States, but for all of us. We're standing at an inflection point in world history. We have the ability to invest in ourselves and build an equitable, clean energy future, and in the process, create millions of good-paying jobs and opportunities around the world. Cleaner air for our children, more bountiful oceans, healthier forests and ecosystems for our planet. We can create an environment that raises the standard of living around the world.
The Afghan capital, Kabul, has been rocked by 2 explosions and gunfire at the site of a military hospital. A Taliban spokesman said the first blast happened in front of the 400-bed Sadar Daud Khan hospital, and the second was nearby. The spokesman said there had been casualties but did not give numbers. An eyewitness reported that there was fighting inside the hospital grounds, and confirmed reports say that at least 15 people have been killed and more wounded. Photographs and video footage from Kabul showed a plume of smoke over the area and recorded sounds of gunfire. In Nigeria, rescuers are continuing the search for survivors in the wreckage of a 22-story high-rise block that collapsed while under construction in Nigeria's largest city, Lagos. At least 10 people have died and dozens are missing. Despite heavy rain, rescue workers and locals used floodlights to work through the night, digging through rubble and twisted metal. Rescue workers at the site say they have had more voices from under the rubble. 9 people have been pulled out alive so far. The partially built block of luxury apartments came down on Monday. However, the cause of collapse and how many people are trapped under the debris remains unclear.
Dad! Gari mpya!
Umetoa wapi gari mpya?
Optiven wametusort.
Optiven?
Nunua any of our value-added properties ama redeem installment ya property yako. Kwa kila malipo ya 10,000 unapata 1 entry point kwenye draw ya furahia na Optiven promotion. Airtime kushindaniwa kila siku, holiday kila wiki, shinda ploti na gari kila mwezi, na grand prize ya Mercedes-Benz C180. Ni rahisi, buy ama redeem na ushinde na furahia na Optiven.
Let's continue with business news. Farmers at the Kenyan-Tanzanian border are set to reap big from horticultural farming practices following interventions by the national government in conjunction with the county government of Taita Taveta to mitigate against perennial floods that have for decades ravaged farms and destroyed harvests. Speaking at Mbogoni Ward in Taveta when he commissioned 2 excavators donated by the Ministry of Agriculture, the County Executive Committee member in charge of agriculture, Davis Mongoma, said the machines will desilt over 50-kilometer canal of the Lambo-Ngutini Marodo irrigation scheme, challenging farmers to continue working closely with the county government to improve production.
Mashamba mengi sana yameachwa bila kufanywa kazi. Hapa sisi kwetu tunalima mseto. Tunalima mboga, tunalima hizi ndizi, tunapanda michungwa, tunapanda maembe, tunapanda nazi, lakini unakuta sehemu zingine yule mkulima anazidi kuumia. Unaweza kukuta sehemu hii kama eka 5-6 zinaharibika, zile pale 5-6 ndio zinastawika na mtaro. Hiyo ni kitu hapa imekuwa common sana.
Huu udongo wetu ni wa kiaina fulani kiasi kwamba maji yakipita hapa utayaona kule kwa ile gari. Alikuwa anamaanisha hivyo huyu. So ukichunguza hata umekuja na hiyo barabara, ukichunguza kwa barabara hiyo umekuja nayo utakuta sehemu hii na maji. Na maana pia block C na challenges hizo. So tungependa sana katika bajeti zenu huo mbudget kufanyia lining hii mitaro. Kwa sababu maji mengi, kwa mfano kama sasa hivi tuwekewe mita ya maji, sidhani kwamba tutatoboa. Kwa sababu maji yatakuwa yanatoka mengi, lakini hayafiki moja kwa moja kwa mkulima, kwa mlengwa. Kwa sababu mengi yatakuwa yanatoka njiani.
Tumekuja kwenu chairman, nafurahi kwa sababu mmepokea, na hii ni project ambayo itakuwa kwa manufaa ya wananchi, na kila stage tuwe tunaifuatia tuone ni wapi imefikia, so that tutoboe pahali. Lengo letu ni kuhakikisha kwamba hizi canals zote zimefunguliwa, hiyo 54 kilometers yote imefunguliwa, na tuangalie vile vile ni wapi kwingine tunaweza tukashirikiana so that tufungue.
Unity Homes, a developer of affordable housing communities, has begun construction of Unity East at Tatu City with 640 2- and 3-bedroom apartments after successfully completing the first phase of 384 2-bedroom homes. The new project will raise the developer's total number of units at Tatu City to more than 1,000. Speaking during the launch of Unity East, Charles Hinga, the Principal Secretary for the State Department for Housing and Urban Development, appealed for more developers to invest in affordable housing, saying the government has made that sector highly appealing to developers. And to some sports news now. Football Kenya Federation CEO Barry Otieno has questioned the motive behind the order by the Ministry of Sports Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohamed to audit their former's accounts. The directive came a couple of days ago after concerns by some stakeholders over the alleged misappropriation of funds. The auditors have been camping at Kandanda House since Friday, and by yesterday, they were done with their task. However, the top officials have questioned the limited time taken to investigate and go through the files, which they believe would have taken at least 4 weeks.
Following the Cabinet Secretary's directive a few days ago, we on Friday received inspectors from the ministry. They went through certain FKF documents. As a federation, we believe that we provided all that was asked. It's important to note that we were requested in under 1 day to present documents dating back from 2016, so financial documents, government returns. So we did bank statement, bank reconciliation, cash books. So we presented this on Friday. They didn't finish going through them. So today again we received a section of the committee, and they are continuing. I think they are continuing to inspect. Specifically for today is they are looking at the bank statements, bank reconciliations. Also because of the bulky nature of our bank statements that we've requested the banks to provide the statements in soft copy. So they will go through them. If and then there is a need for photocopies, they'll do that and hopefully maybe carry out. So generally that's it. And we believe that as a federation we have complied with the directive of the CS. Having said that, we also have concerns. Normally our statutory audit would take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And this is normally done by reputable firms. Cumulatively, I think the inspectors have been here for 8 hours. I do not want to preempt the report. I can only say that we are concerned with the limited time that they have had to carry out this inspection, and whether then conclusively they can arrive at an opinion, whether good or bad, or whether negative or positive, that this is the situation at FKF and these are the remedial measures that we are recommending.
A day after firing Nuno Espirito Santo as their manager, Tottenham Hotspurs have appointed Antonio Conte as the club's new head coach. The former Chelsea head coach is returning to London on a contract until the summer of 2023 with an option to extend. Antonio has won titles in Serie A, including a hat-trick with Juventus, the Premier League, and also managed Italy. Antonio returned to club football at Chelsea in 2016 and secured the Premier League crown in his first season, 2016-17, with a then league record of 30 wins in 38 matches, including a run of 13 straight victories. After just 17 games in charge, Nuno Espirito Santo was sacked yesterday after Spurs' Saturday's 3-0 home defeat by Manchester United. All right, with that, we've come to the end of this live broadcast. Thank you so much for keeping us company this far. Till next time, God bless. I'm Tony Omondi, and our sign language interpreter has been Boniface Murithi. Good night.